All right, so hopefully you got to know a little bit about the person next to you too. But all right, so I'll be honest with you. I had a kind of a tough time preparing for this message because I'm going to try to convince you of something that I don't think most of you believe, because of how strongly the world has a certain perspective on things. Okay, so the key to living a good life. Okay, the key to living a good life. Okay, the key to living a good life is to figure out the true paradoxes in life. Okay, the true paradoxes in life. So here are some examples. Things that are that seem contradictory, but are actually true. Okay, so here's some examples. If you want to be successful, you have to fail a lot. Right? That's true. I think if you actually have tried to, basically, the more you fail, the faster you fail, the better you get at failing, the more successful you can become, right? If you want people to like you, you have to show people the parts of you that you don't want to show, right? Vulnerability. If you're never vulnerable with people, people are not actually going to like you, right? The more time you spend on social media, the lonelier that you are, okay? The wiser you are, the more you recognize the less you know. Wise people tend to be humble because they understand how little they know, right? So the true paradoxes in life. So I think if you understand these paradoxes and live into them, you will figure out how to live a thriving life. Now, Christianity has some true paradoxes as well. Things that are, I think, more difficult to swallow. Really, really counterintuitive stuff. But what Jesus says in the Bible, this is like the creator of the universe giving you the secrets to life, okay? So the one that we're going to cover today is what it looks like to be great. How to be great. And what Jesus says is that to be great is to be a servant. To be great is to be a servant. I think this is so shocking that Jesus does something shocking to demonstrate this. Okay, so our text today is in John 13. Okay, John 13. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father. So this is kind of, let's set the stage here. He's done a lot of ministry already, and very soon it's going to go into his journey to the cross, right? And that's kind of what we call Passion Week. So he's having this discussion right in between those two things. His ministry on earth, more or less, is nearing an end. He's done a lot of teaching, a lot of preaching, a lot of healing, and then he's about to head to the cross. And this is what he's trying to convey to his disciples. He knew that his hour had come to depart out of the world, right? To the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, right? Because we know that Judas ultimately ends up betraying Jesus. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. And here's where the shocking thing happens. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Now, this would have been incredibly shocking to the disciples here. Less shocking to us because more or less our feet are clean, I hope. So it's not. I wouldn't think it's not as. But back then, they often wore sandals, and the roads were muddy, dirty. There was, animal stuff all over so your feet had all kinds of stuff all over it, okay? And so everyone's feet were filthy. This task was considered so demeaning, so low, that even slaves were not required to do it, okay? Slaves, you have to obviously do what people tell you to do. But this task, they said, this is so low that even a slave, you're not required to do this because it's so disgusting. And what Jesus does is he starts doing something that even slaves were not required to do. He's teaching them a lesson, right? He's teaching them a lesson. So let's read on. So he does this, and let's start from verse 6, okay? Verse 6. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, do you wash my feet? Right? He's like, whoa, hold on, you're Lord. Like not even a slave is supposed to do this, but you're Lord. Like, whoa, what's going on here? Do you wash my feet? Jesus answered him, what I am doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand, right? I'm teaching you a lesson. You'll get it, but here, let me do this for you right now. Peter said to him, you shall never wash my feet, right? Can you imagine if the person that you wanted an autograph from came to you and said, hey, let me, right? You'd be like, whoa, what's going on? Like, it's a little bit of that kind of feeling, right? Jesus answered him, if I do not wash you, you have no share with me. Wow, strong language, suddenly. I don't think Peter fully understands, but he understood that Jesus was sort of barking back at him, right? So he says, okay, well, Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head, right? Okay, if the way that I'm going to have a part with you is that you wash my feet, then wash everything, right? Is what he's saying there. Jesus said to him, the one who has bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you. So he's using figurative language here. And we'll get back to this. For he knew who was to betray him, right? And that's why he said, not all of you are clean. So he's talking about something internal, right? Not just physically external. It was a way to show something internal. And when he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. It's true, I am teacher and I am Lord. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. If you had to pick one of these two lines to describe your life, which one would you want to choose, right? I think all of us would choose this one, right? Up and to the right, the ascent. We want sort of our achievements, our renown, our bank account, right? Up and to the right. When you think of great men and great women, who do you think of? Right? People whose lives are up and to the right. People who are exceptional in some way, right? Better, faster, smarter, richer than others. And how do you get there? You got to out-hustle, you got to out-grind, you got to outlast the people around you, right? And then if you can accomplish more, you will be great in the world. Jesus wants you to be great. Jesus wants you to be great. He wants you to become great, and he wants you to do great things. The question is, what does it mean to be great? What are the great things? And here's where I think it gets hard. Like the message of Jesus wanting us to be great, I think goes down smooth. The question of what those great things are hard. What does Jesus consider to be great? Okay, so here's what I'd like for you to do. On your handout, our main text for the day is on the left side. On the right side are a whole bunch of verses, okay? So I want you to go ahead and read those verses in a group, maybe 2 or 3. Okay, just go ahead and read through those and answer these questions. Like as you read through them, like think about these questions and discuss afterwards. What is greatness according to Jesus? And you guys are good students. Like, so then why should we then serve? Okay, so go ahead and do that. All right, so Jesus flips everything upside down, right? Upside down. So instead of the ascent, he points to the descent. He's like, this is how you should live. And he's demonstrating that. He's like, this thing that not even slaves were required to do, he's like, I'm going to descend and do that. Like, what would be the modern equivalent to this, So I was trying to think, like, what would be like, so I don't know, like maybe a guy's college apartment. Just imagine that, whatever that looks like for you. And you go over to their apartment and then you head to the bathroom. And you're like, I'm going to clean your toilet. I'm going to clean all the grime off of your you know what I'm saying? Like it's that sort of thing. Like someone coming in to do that kind of descending, right? Jesus would point to that and he would say, that is great. Greatness, that's what greatness looks like. C.S. Lewis, he wrote a book called The Great Divorce. It's a really interesting fictional book about what heaven and hell could potentially look like. It's fictional. It's not supposed to be like super theological, but really interesting portrait of it. And there's this character who looks at like the figures in hell and looks at the figures in heaven. And there's this one scene that I've never forgotten where he sees this person that is incredibly glorious. She is full of radiance. She has more glory than other people in heaven, actually. And there are others around her sort of glorifying her too as she walks around. And he's like, wow, who is, he actually thinks that maybe that's the Virgin Mary because she's so glorious. And his guide says, oh no, that's not, who is she? Who is this person? And his guide says, that's Sarah Smith of Golders Green. Like, who's that? Nobody knows who she is. She was just a random person living on a random street. But he said the way that she lived her life was always serving. The way that she lived her life was always serving her family, not just her family, but all the other families on the street. She wasn't rich. She wasn't successful. But her life was constantly serving. Even the animals, C.S. Lewis says, she served the animals on her street. Her life was all about giving of herself and descending. She had no name that people would think of as great. And yet in heaven, she is incredibly glorious. God says, who is great in the kingdom of heaven? It's those who descend. It's those who serve. Jesus' life, his greatest acts were all service. In this act, he demonstrates it. But really, he's on his way to where? The cross. In his greatest act of descent. This is, I said this in the beginning, this is a little bit difficult because everything in the world tells you something opposite, right? Like, this is one of the biggest lies that you will ever believe. And it's incredibly ingrained into our hearts. Because Western, rugged individualism, the American dream, all of that points to, it points to that, right? It points to that as greatness. That's what we're all looking for. That's what we're all trying to achieve, right? Like, I know you guys believe this lie. Maybe like 5 out of 7 days of the week, at least, right? Because you're here at these schools. Like, to get to this school, what drove you? And when you're at this school, what values does it tell you to live? It's all about going up and to the right, the ascent. And it's not just a secular thing either, because this is so ingrained that it can actually infect your spiritual life too. That you can spiritualize greatness, even though that's very opposite of what Jesus told us to do. What does it look like to be great in your spiritual life? Right? To not be a failure, to do great things for God, big things for God, lead a lot of people to Christ, have a lot of people respond to you, be part of a big and thriving and growing ministry. If that's what greatness is, that's up and to the right. For those of you involved in ministry, do you believe this lie? And you compare with others who are quote unquote more successful. How do you think God would evaluate that? How do you think Jesus would evaluate that? I'll be honest with you, this is one of my biggest struggles. This is one of the things that I've battled my whole life. Because ever since I was young, this lie has been put into my heart. That greatness is always up and to the right. Greatness is achieving. Greatness is doing well, getting the A, getting the score, making the team. All of those things are what greatness is. And even in my spiritual life, this can affect my spiritual life. You know, I listen to different podcasts. I listen to different podcasts on like world news and like leadership and Christian stuff and whatever. And like, you know, you hear these ministries that are like going through a revival. And like, if I'm honest with you, I'm like, that's great. But how come not me? How come like, and it fills me with the twinge of failure. Am I failing? Am I doing something wrong? Why is it not like that? Why am I not experiencing that? And I get all bent out of shape because my focus is up and to the right. And I think this text reminded me again, my focus should not be on what I don't have or trying to be awesome, even in ministry, even successful in my Christian life, whatever that means. My focus should be on who I can serve today. Who can I descend to serve today? Why does God want us to serve? Why does Jesus want us to serve? Well, of course, to love is to serve, right? To love is to serve. Perhaps the purest form of love is parental love, unadulterated parental love. What defines parental love? It's service, right? Like a parent who sacrifices and serves their child. Mom or dad sacrificing sleep, money, tiredness, right? Them even leaving their own opportunities for the sake of their child. If you love someone, how is that going to be expressed? Right? It's expressed through service, servanthood towards that person. Since it's a room full of young people, I'm just going to give you some random dating advice, okay? Date the person who serves. Look around, and find someone who's serving others. If they're not serving others, do you think that after you guys get married, that they will serve you? All right. So let's move on. So servanthood, it's universally attractive, right? Like when someone's awesome, you're like, wow, that's cool. And it doesn't benefit you at all. When someone is a servant, right, they elevate everyone around them. One of the first things I noticed about our church when I came as a freshman is how the oldest people serve the most, sort of flipped upside down. That's not how that works in the world. The older people tend to, if you're greater in a sense, you take the privileges, right? But in the church, it's flipped upside down. Those who lead should serve the most. And so I saw older men, like, doing all the things, set up and take down and like just everything, right? They were serving the most. One of the requirements for leadership at our church is that you are a servant. And I expect the leaders of our church to serve more, sacrifice more than the ones that they're serving, right? So what does servanthood look like? Okay, what does servanthood look like? Let's get practical. Okay, so I took this section, and it's just a small section, but I thought it was helpful because it's very concrete and it's very vivid. Okay, it's from one of our discipleship courses called Course 301, and it's on servanthood, and it's a servanthood assessment. Okay, so this is not for you to feel bad about yourself. Okay, but it's just a way to let's get real, let's get vivid. Okay, so on the back of your handout, okay, you'll see the servanthood assessment, okay? And I want you to just go ahead and, nobody's going to read this. It's just for you, okay? And go ahead and read those things, all right? And then after you finish this, I think it'll take 2 minutes just to go through that, okay? I just want you to share with the neighbor, what did you learn about yourself through this exercise, all right? So I'll give you a minute or two just to fill it out for yourself. Once you're done, your neighbor's done, and just talk about it. Hey, what did you learn about yourself through this exercise? All right, go ahead. How do I experience God? How do I experience God? And what I tell them is, you need to follow Jesus. You need to be where Jesus is. If you're where Jesus is, you will experience God. So where's Jesus? Right? He's serving. So you want to experience Jesus, you be where he is, right? You do what he does, and then you'll experience him. I'm going to quickly walk through a discipleship tool. We have 5 different discipleship tools, and this is one of them. If you want to kind of go dive deeper into this, just ask your mentor, and they can walk you through this. But we affectionately call it this. Sweat joy. Okay, sweat joy. So it is an acronym. The sweat part is an acronym. So we're going to quickly walk through this. Okay, so sweat is an acronym. So SWEAT. Okay, so what does the S stand for? The first one is show up. Show up, right? You can't be a servant if you're not there. Simple, right? You got to show up. Everyone's different. But I feel like probably the most difficult one for y'all is this one. To show up. To actually be there. Your time is very precious. You've got a lot of things going on. Many different things to take care of. College for you guys is so different than when I was an undergrad. When I was an undergrad, man, it was fun. I studied in the morning and I hung out at night. But it's stressful for you guys. You have so many things going on. So there is that. At the same time, if you allow all of those things to prevent you from showing up, You'll never experience servanthood. You'll never experience sweat, joy, and spending time with God in this way, right? So to show up. And really what that comes down to is time and schedule, right? I'm going to be there. Work hard, right? So when you come and when you show up, work hard, okay? So I don't know. I sometimes I see people coming to a work day and it just seems like their entire goal is to work as little as possible. You know, they're always the last to move. Like only when everybody else moves, they move, you know, like everybody else is sweating and they're like pristine. I'm like, it's a work day, homie, right? So anyway, when you show up to work hard, it's interesting. It's like I don't know. It's so much more fun to work hard, honestly, right? Like if you're playing sports, what if your whole goal was to not sweat? Like how much fun would you have, right? You'd be like, it's a miserable experience, right? So work hard, okay? Embrace any task, right? And this kind of goes to the menial aspect of things. Oh, that's beneath me. You know, I'm above that. And again, I think Jesus demonstrates, no. The Lord of the universe did something not even slaves were required to do, right? And so he kind of shows us, no. Part of being a servant actually is to embrace any task, whatever is required of you to love the other person. I'm going to do that, right? Now, here's the thing. Because this seems so hard, the descent seems so hard, people rarely do this. But the thing is, if you do that, what you'll do is actually you'll experience the ascent as well. In the Philippians 2 verse, it talks about how Jesus did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, right? But took the very form of a servant. What does God do for those who descend? He lifted him up, right? He lifted him up. So actually, as you descend, what God does is he lifts you up. So what are some aspects of the ascent? First, acquiring skills. The most skillful people are servants. The people who are like, I'm going to do that, I'm going to help, and I'm going to work hard, right? So like most of my skills happened because I became a servant. You know, like learning all the things that we sort of learn over time. So actually, you take any random cross-section of some of the mentors, and they just have all these random skills that they've learned, right? Towing trailers, doing tech, making videos, being on band, learning how to do the website, cooking, babysitting, event, and trip planning. Because of Sierra Lodge and various like work days that we've done, like I've learned how to do install basic electrical things, plumbing, framing, roof, walls. Like I learned how to do all of that. And all of those skills I've ultimately started to use in other contexts. So like now when I go back home to my parents' place or my parents-in-law's place, like one of the things I do is I look for things that I can fix. Like I can do that. I know how to fix that, right? So like a life of servanthood, right? So you acquire skills, and then that will then allow you to tackle hard things. I don't know what your emotional feeling is before there's a hard thing in front of you. What your immediate reaction is. Procrastination maybe, right? Like, no, I'm not ready to do this, right? So tackle hard things, right? How do you become someone who's able to tackle hard things? It's actually through this process. Because as you show up, work hard, embrace any task, and acquire skills, you become someone who's confident, competent, right? Have a lot of capacity. There's a saying in the business world, if you need something to get done, give it to the person who's busiest. Which seems counterintuitive, right? Except actually the person who's busiest is the one who's a servant. They're the ones who've done all this stuff already, and they're able to get things done. So the person who's the busiest, if you really need something done, give it to them, right? Because they're able to tackle hard things. And then of course, if a whole group of people, the body of Christ, every single person in this room embraced servanthood, the kind of things that we would be able to do together is amazing, right? And so I think about all the things that our church has been able to do over the years through a group of people who are willing to embrace this task. Now, what does all of that lead to? Joy. Which is why it's called sweat joy, right? Sweat joy. If you live your life tiptoeing towards death, you will not experience joy. All you'll experience is anxiety, worry, fear. And if your goal is always to go up and to the right, it's never going to be enough. And you will not experience joy. Joy happens when you descend. Joy happens when you're with Jesus, loving other people and embracing that. And then you'll experience joy. All right, Final section. This is a question I get a lot, and I understand this because I've experienced this a lot too. Joe, what if I do a lot of this, but I'm not experiencing this? I'm sweating, I'm serving, I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I don't experience joy. What's that all about? What's going on here? So I think our text actually gives us two ways in which we can descend without grumbling, right? Descend, but still experience joy. I think if you have been doing it all on your own, you're doing it all in your own strength, that's when you'll experience burnout, right? If you ever experienced burnout in Christian life, it's probably because of this. You're sweating a lot, but you're not getting something back in return, right? You're not being filled up. You can't just give and give and give unless you're getting filled up, right? So two ways to maintain joy, okay? So first one, what does Jesus do? He says, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, and he loved them to the end. And we talked about how servanthood should come out of love, right? And then he says this, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, that he had come from God, and that he was going back to God. Knowing that he had come from God, and that he was going back to God, enabled him to rise and then be a servant. He knew his origin and he knew his destiny. I think this is really, really important. So I'm just going to read a passage from a book called Jesus-Driven Ministry by Ajith Fernando, one of my favorite books. And he talks all about this, so I thought, I can't say it better than he can, so let's read through this passage. Okay, so people who get their identity, security, and significance from God have the strength to be servants, right? People have their identity, security, and significance from God, have the strength to be servants. Servants do many things that seem to be demeaning. Their schedules are at the mercy of those they serve, and often things require attention, crop up at the most inconvenient times. One has to be strong to remain joyous while doing such things. It is significant that two of the most familiar passages given to illustrate Jesus' servanthood first talk about his exalted status. The first passage is his washing of the feet of the disciples. Jesus knew where he came from and where he was going. Jesus' exalted identity gave him the strength to be a servant. Those who have a firm grasp of their exalted identity in Christ do not need to put on airs or act superior or look down on others. They are thrilled with the amazing status that has been conferred on them, even though they do not deserve it. They are madly in love with the Christ who gave them this status. Now they want to spend the rest of their lives trying to lift up others, and they do so in the strength of what God has done to them. People are not a threat to them because the eternal God has given them eternal significance. They are freed to be servants. Why do you feel the need to ascend, to grasp, to go higher and higher? It's because you don't know where you came from or where you are going. You're an orphan in a competitive world, just trying to claw your way to the top. But if you know where you came from, that you were lovingly created by God, that your identity as God's son or daughter is greater than anything else, you've been made in the image of the Almighty God, that you have a soul so precious that God would die for you. Right? If you know that, and you know where you're going, God has a home prepared for you, that everything in this world will burn away, that if your identity or security is tied to anything in this world, it will burn away within 50 years. If you know that, then you don't have to tie it to those things. Money, career, beauty, whatever, those things will not hold you anymore. You don't need to go up and to the right. And instead of that, you are now free to give your life away. Right? You're free to be a servant. You're free to descend. You're free to serve without recognition. And you look around, those who have the most joy are the ones who are just free with their lives. Second and final one. Like I said, if you want to be filled, right? If you want to be filled, then you have to, if you want to give, then you have to be filled, right? If you want to give, you have to be filled. Filled with grace, filled with love, filled with forgiveness. Jesus is ready and willing to fill you with grace. The question is, are you ready to be filled with his grace? Because here's the thing, being filled with grace means admitting that you need grace. And you have to present your whole self. And that's sort of what this middle section is all about. Peter looks at his feet and he says, Lord, you will never wash my feet. Why does he say that? Because it's disgusting, right? It's ugly. No. Don't look at my feet. Don't look at my feet. And I think this sense, we all have that sense spiritually, right? We all have parts of ourselves that are unpresentable. The parts of ourselves that we want to hide. Parts of ourselves that we don't want to show other people. Like the presentable parts we're fine with. But Jesus is like, no. If you don't let me wash your feet, I have nothing to do with you. If you don't show Jesus who you are, your unpresentable parts, the things that you're ashamed of, the things that you want to hide, the things that are ugly and dirty, Jesus says, oh, we don't have a relationship. Who are the people that you're closest to? This is people that you can be honest with, right? And Jesus is like, oh, you bring that to me. You bring that to me, and I will make you clean. Now, here's the thing. If you don't bring that to Jesus, you're not going to be full of grace. You're going to be full of hiding. You're going to be full of shame. You're going to be full of distance from Jesus. And you're never going to be filled. How are you going to be a servant if you're not full of God's grace and his love? And so Jesus tells Peter, show me your ugly parts. And then Peter, although he didn't fully understand what he was saying, he's like, all right, then wash all of me, right? And that, I think, is a response of someone who says, I want a relationship with Jesus. I want to show you every part of me. I want to spend some time in prayer. Actually, if the band could come down. I just want to invite you to pray. I just found it shocking that Jesus says this because it's so strong. If I do not wash you, you have no share with me. If I do not wash you, you have no share with me. The primary thing that Jesus wants with you is a relationship. He doesn't want your servanthood as a way to get production out of you. Servanthood is a path to joy. But how do you have a relationship with Jesus? It's to let Jesus wash you. Jesus doesn't want pretense. He doesn't want just the presentable part of ourselves, just the Sunday best. He doesn't want the mask. He doesn't want the resume, the interview where you present the best parts of yourself. He wants you at 2 a.m. hating yourself, crying in your pillow, doing the thing that you swore you would not do again. He wants you when you're crippled by fear and anxiety and shame. He wants those parts, the dirty, unpresentable parts. And there's a part of you that can say, I just want to keep this to myself. I just want to keep this dark stuff to myself. I'll take care of it. I'll wash my own feet. Don't look at this. Verse 1, it says, now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. What is that end? It's the cross. It's the cross. He's not just cleansing them with water, right? It's not just a physical thing, it's a spiritual thing. He's cleansing their souls. He cleansed their souls with his blood. His blood which washes all of them clean. And so I just want to give you an opportunity to present your unpresentable parts. I think especially if you've been serving for some time, you've been sweating, but there isn't much joy. Maybe part of that is because you're keeping your unpresentable parts to yourself. I'll take care of this, Jesus. And Jesus is like, hey, if I don't wash you, I have nothing to do. We don't have a relationship. And you're not going to be full of grace and love. You can't keep serving and giving if you're not being filled with something. And so I just want to give you an opportunity to do that. God, here are my unpresentable parts. Here are the things I don't want to tell other people. God, you see all of it. And you know what Jesus' response is going to be. How does he respond to Peter? How does he respond to all the disciples who failed him in the end? He forgives them. So he will forgive you. The question is, are we going to bring our unpresentable parts to him? I think there are times when we can pray and we can present ourselves to Jesus, but and we don't feel forgiven, right? And I think if that's you, what I would suggest is that you talk to someone about it, a friend or a mentor, and present your unpresentable parts. For me, some of the most watershed spiritual moments in my life are when I confess the thing that I didn't want to tell anybody. And I remember my sophomore year telling my mentor something that I was deeply ashamed of, something that I had not told anyone for many years. And you know what he told me? What he did was, he didn't tell me anything new. He didn't tell me anything I didn't know already, actually. What he told me was the gospel, actually. He just reiterated the gospel. And that was a powerful moment for me. I knew the gospel here, but I think for me to experience it here required me to present my unpresentable parts. And so I just want to give us some time to do that. If I could just ask you to stand, and especially the people on the edge of the rows, like to kind of just to give the people in the middle a little bit of space. Sometimes they want some space, but they can't because of all the big dudes like in the way, right? So if the people on the edges, if they can, that'll just give the people in the middle a little bit of space. I just want to give you some time to pray and just present your parts. Here's a God who's willing to clean the dirtiest parts of us, right? And he does so willingly. He does so because he loves you. He serves you because he loves you. And so I just want to give you some time to do that. Let's pray. Let's pray a prayer of gratitude for what Jesus has done for us. Because the thing is, he didn't just do that for those 12 guys in that room 2,000 years ago. He's been doing that ever since. Jesus is alive. He's here in your life. He's here with you right now. And he's doing the same thing that he did before, which is to love you, serve you. He would descend because of his love for you. Let's pray a prayer of gratitude that we don't have to achieve God's love. We don't have to hit a certain standard. We don't have to be great in order for God to notice us. He loves us in spite of our unpresentable parts. We can't go lower than where Jesus went. Our sin can never be greater than his love for us. And so let's just thank Jesus for that today, now, we can be filled with grace because of what Jesus has done in our lives. So let's pray a prayer of gratitude.